Hi, labor markets. Okay, we'll try and make it in 15 or less, but it's going to be hard. So pay attention. Now, labor markets, it's about people. It's about the demand for labor from businesses and the supply of labor of people who are looking for work. Now, labor is a factor of production. We have land, labor, capital, and enterprise. Labor is one of them. And people work and they earn money from the work they are doing. Now, to understand that, we look at a demand diagram. The demand diagram for labor is very similar to a normal demand curve. It's downward sloping, but instead of putting price, we put wage on the y-axis. And on the other, we put quantity. Quantity L, quantity demanded of labor. So in a free market, we have the demand from businesses who want people to work for them, and we have the supply, people who are looking for work. And when both meet, we have the equilibrium. But that happens in a free market or a mixed economy, not in a command economy. In a command economy, we will have the government allocating people to work in particular areas. So it doesn't quite work. So this works in a free economy or a mixed economy. We also look at the what derives the demand of labor. So the labor is linked to the output of a business. The more they're selling, the more labor they will need. So there's a very strong link between labor and the demand for products from that business. Or if you're looking at an industry, labor in that industry and the demand for products in that industry. We also need to look at the law of diminishing returns. How does it relate? Well, the law of diminishing returns states that for every extra unit of labor, you will reach a point where the average output starts decreasing. Not because they're not clever or smart, it's just because they don't have enough capital to work with. So, you have 10 computers and you're employing 20 people. There's an extra 10 people that don't have a computer to work with. So hence they're not going to be as productive, and employing them is going to bring the average output down. So that's another reason why the demand curve is assumed to be downward sloping for labor, because the more people you employ, you'll reach a point where their output becomes less and less than the previous. So happy days. So what else? What other assumptions we have? We assume that employees create an output. So present there for you. Now the value of that present, let's say it's £100 that they've created. So their wage should be equal or less. So if you think about their wage, should be equal or less than the value of their output. So if you're working for somebody and you're making a product, a pen, your wage will be either the same as the value of your output or less. So hence the business will make that difference. So that's the other assumption. Good. So when we look at the what does it show us? It shows us that at a lower wage, businesses can employ more people. Think about scarce resources, right? Money is a resource. So at a higher wage, the quantity of labor is less. They're spending their money, so they can't recruit more people. Whereas at a lower wage, they can employ more people. So any changes in wage will create an adjustment, a movement along the demand curve for labor. So here we have movement from A, so a low wage, to increasing wages means that they're gonna demand less people. They don't have enough money to employ more. So we have a movement along the demand curve. So what about a shift? Okay, so if we're looking at a shift of the demand curve from D1 to D2, a business, that means that they are looking for a lot more people, but it's not related to wage. Anything related to wage means that it's an adjustment. So what else could would create this shift in demand for labor? Well, if they have a good marketing campaign, If you do business studies, think about the marketing mix. A very good marketing campaign, price, product, place, promotion might increase the demand for those products, so hence the business will need to employ more people. So that will create brand love, and with that, an increase in demand. Other reasons for a shift in demand is the income elasticity of demand. So let's imagine the result is +2. So plus means it's a normal good. The more people earn, the more they will buy of that product. Now that the number +2, that means that there's a strong relationship. So a small increase in income means that there's a more than proportionate expenditure on this particular product. It's more than one, so it's a luxury. So we're looking maybe holidays. So if suddenly people start earning more money, we're gonna sell a lot more holidays. So we will need to employ a lot more people. So meaning that there'll be a shift outwards in the demand for labor from this business. Let's imagine some holiday company. What else? Cross elasticity of demand. You can also create a shift in the demand curve. Again, inwards or outwards. So if it's +1, okay, plus one, there we go. So we know that plus means that we're looking at rivals, we're looking at competing businesses. So +1, there's a relationship there, fairly strong relationship, elastic. And it's telling us that, let's say Coca-Cola versus Pepsi. If we're looking at the demand for labor from Coca-Cola, so Coca-Cola recruiting people, if Pepsi increases their prices, then consumers will buy less from Pepsi and more from Coca-Cola. We can see it here, +1. That's what it's telling us. They're gonna buy less from Pepsi, more from Coca-Cola. And that also tells us that if they're gonna buy more from us, from Coca-Cola, we'll need to employ more people. So that'll create an outwards shift in demand curve. And those are the main key 3 ingredients when you're looking at what shifts the demand curve for labor. Whereas if we're looking only at wage, that variable will create just an adjustment. Easy peasy. Let's look at we're going to analyze the demand for labor. And to analyze the demand for labor, a good tool is the wage elasticity of demand. WED. And the formula is a percentage change in the quantity demanded of labor divided by percentage change in the wages. So that tells us we're analyzing 2 variables. We're looking at wage, we're looking at the quantity of labor. And we want to know if a change in wage is going to create a more than proportionate change in the quantity demanded for labor. So if it's more than proportionate, then the result is going to be elastic demand for labor. If it's elastic, it's going to be more than 1. In this case, because it's downward sloping, we're probably going to get a minus sign in most cases. Well, we will get a minus sign if it's downward sloping. And -1 means that it's elastic. Well, let's make it even more elastic. It's -3. So that means that a small change in wage creates a more than proportionate change in the quantity demanded for people, for employees. So Coca-Cola increases their wages a little bit, and then that means that they're going to demand a lot less people. So from demanding 400 people, now they only demand 20 people. So a decrease in the quantity. That is more than proportionate to the increase in price. What will this happen? Well, one of the key examples or reasons is to do where how easily it is to substitute employees. So if you're looking at a factory, in the last 50 years, factories have gone from employing 1,000 people to only employing 400 people, and that's because they've been easily replaced by machinery. So if you can replace people easily, then the wage elasticity of demand is going to be elastic. However, if you cannot replace people, then it's going to be inelastic. So inelastic will be a figure that is less than 1, ignoring the symbol, but because it's downward sloping, we're going to put a minus there. Wage, quantity demand of labor. So we see here, I'm probably blocking your vision. I'll get out of the way in a second. So if the wage goes up, the quantity demanded goes down only by a little bit. Because if imagine in a hospital you need a heart surgeon, so that is very hard to replace. So therefore, even if wages go up, they're going to still demand these heart surgeons because they can't replace them with anything else. So that'll be quite an inelastic wage elasticity of demand. Yeah, happy days. Next, we will move on onto supply of labor. So, I hear you ask supply of labor. No, you didn't? Oh, well, is what I'll tell you anyway. So, wages, quantity. Now, the supply of labor are all those people that are looking for work. You know, look at this guy. He's paid there, he's ready to work. At a higher wage, well, many more will want to apply for that role. So if the wage was a couple of pounds an hour, then probably not many people apply for the role. But if the wage increases to £1,000 an hour, then we can see that a lot more people will apply for that role. So that's the idea behind the upward sloping demand curve. It has a positive correlation, as you can tell, and the angle will depend on how many people are applying. So if you have many people applying, then you have a fairly elastic curve, whereas if you only have very few people applying, you have quite an inelastic supply curve. Let me give you an example. An inelastic supply curve will be lion tamers. Not many people are applying for that job, hence the supply curve will be quite inelastic. Whereas if you're looking at working in retail, many people want to work in retail. So there'll be quite a big pool of people applying, and the line will be quite elastic, so it'll be more horizontal. Yeah, so what causes a shift? Or what causes an adjustment? So what moves it from A to B? You got it right, the wage, that is it. But what causes a shift? So what causes an increase in the supply of labor? Well, maybe we have, I have this acronym I use, FIT cream. So F for flexibility of labor, E for the level of education required to enter that particular market. Maybe you need a PhD, and not many have a PhD, so it'll be a barrier to entry when you're applying. The environment, do you like the place you work in? Do you want to work there because your friends are there? Maybe the brand, is something you're associated with and you want to be represented by that brand. The level of technology when you're applying, is it easy to apply for the role? You need to know how to use particular technology around you. So that's FIT. Cream is competition. How many more people are applying for it? R for regulation. In some instances, there might be certain regulation of who can apply for what role, depending on your background checks. I is for innovation. I don't think innovation applies here, but and M for migration. So if we have more people entering the country, then we're going to have an increase in supply. So what increases the supply? In a nutshell, think migration. We can think of the love for the brand. People want to work there because it represents who they are. Maybe they think, hey, Sarah, yes, I've always wanted to work for Sarah. So there might be a pool of people that might want to work for them. So it's not just wage, but it's any other factor other than wage that will cause a shift in the supply curve. Again, the acronym FIT cream tends to help. Good. Let's move on. So we're going to look at, I got 1 minute. I'll put it here on the side. Equilibrium and minimum wage. So the equilibrium is when both the demand and the supply of labor meet. So when we have an equilibrium, all the people applying for a job meet with all the businesses looking for workers. So you can think of when I was in South America, in the plaza, you have at 6 o'clock in the morning all the people looking for work, and you have these trucks coming along and saying, well, this is the wage we offer for the day. it'll be picking fruit or working machinery or for construction. And depending on the wage being offered, certain people will get on the truck and do the work, and some people might not. Also depends on the level of safety. In some instances, they will go to mines, which the job was quite risky, yet the wage was a bit higher. But again, when they both meet, you have this equilibrium. You have the demand. These are businesses that are, it's a little factory there, looking for employees, labor, and they're offering wages, and you have the supply. So people who are looking for work, and they eventually meet and have this equilibrium. So equilibrium wage, which is kind of your average wage, and your equilibrium quantity of labor, the quantity that are applying, that are sort of the meet the demand for labor. Now, how does this interact with minimum wage or maximum wage? So let's think about in Dubai. So the Emiratis, the locals, have a minimum wage, which is quite high. It's like $2,000 a month. You have to convert that into dirhams, but it's the equivalent of 2,000 US. So if that's the minimum wage of 2,000 US, it's okay to represent 1,000. We will have a high supply, so meaning that a lot of labor are applying for this. So a high supply of labor, yet the demand is going to be quite low because it's above the equilibrium. So the quantity demanded from the private sector is going to be low. They're going to think, well, how am I going to pay them so much? There's a new guy, he's just come out of college. So the demand is going to be low, and the supply is going to be high. Many people applying, not many jobs available because it's above the equilibrium point. And we have a similar example, but it's the opposite end of the spectrum. Cuba has a maximum wage of $20 a month. So that means that the supply is going to be low. Not many people are going to want to work at that wage. Very few people are going to want to work for $20 a month. Really, if you want to do any work, no. However, the demand is going to be quite high for these people. No, from businesses. Businesses are going to be like, yeah, come on, you got to work for me. High demand, because they're paying them peanuts, $20 a month. So what that does is, again, it's because it's below the equilibrium. Then you have this imbalance when there'll be a high demand and a low supply of labor. A real life example, and for example, lately there's been a lot of tourism going, or many people visiting Cuba for tourism, so they need to build more and more hotels. Now, the locals don't want to work making these hotels because for 20 a month is barely anything for the amount of work they have to do. So instead, these construction companies have to employ people from Costa Rica and other places to do the work. And these people from other countries, they are not bound by the legal regulations of Cuba, so they get paid $4,000 a month, which is the equilibrium wage. But that's only possible because, again, they're not constricted by the local regulation of a maximum of $20. So there you go. Last little bits to do with market for labor, trade unions. Trade unions is a group of employees that get together and they have a common goal. It has helped businesses develop, or at least working conditions have increased over time due to trade unions, due to to unions. And they also they have leverage, they have what's called bargaining power, because that helps them push the prices up. Not prices, sorry, the wages up. Other things that are quite important with labor markets is to understand wage discrimination and wage differentials. So wage differentials is having a different wage in different sectors, and the reason being is probably the demand for the product is different in different sectors. It could also be due to labor mobility. So if you were working in a factory making bottles for Coca-Cola and that has closed down, how quickly can you get a job somewhere else? If it's in a bottling plant for Pepsi, it's quite easy. You can just move across and start working there. However, if then you want to work in a car manufacturing plant, you'll have to retrain yourself. and that's going to take some time. So labor mobility is a problem. Other problems that we have are geographical. So moving people from one place to another. So once upon a time, the coal mining was very big in southwest of the United Kingdom, whereas not anymore. Now, and many of those people were not willing to relocate to get jobs elsewhere. So again, that will cause this wage differential between different parts of the UK. People earn more money in London, people earn a little less money out of London. Again, wage differential. And then wage discrimination is not the same as wage differential. Wage discrimination is when someone is paid a different amount due to race, gender, I guess religious beliefs, and that's against the law. So that's labor markets. Answer the questions below. Good luck on your exam.